If you would like a free newsletter on this or other subjects, just give us a call at Christian Answers. The phone number is area code 512-218-8022. That's 512-218-8022. Or you could email us at cdebater@aol.com. That's cdebater@aol.com.
Greetings and welcome once again to our program. I'm Larry Wessels, your host. I'm director of Christian Answers, a Christian apologetic ministry that proclaims the gospel of Jesus Christ and tries to show our viewers that Christianity is something that is reliable, has evidence for it. Did you know, for instance, that there's over 2,000 fulfilled Bible prophecies with over 456 prophecies and their inferences in the Old Testament alone, just referring to Jesus Christ, written hundreds of years before Christ even came on the earth. Supernatural things of this. Archaeology proves the Bible. You have manuscript evidence going back, the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's all kinds of evidence for the Christian faith. And our ministry has been here to proclaim the truthfulness of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that Jesus was who he said he was, and that you can put your faith in him and have eternal life through his shed blood on the cross and have forgiveness of your sins and face an eternity with joy with the Lord in the next life. Because after all, this life is short, and we have to, while we're here for this brief time, make a decision in our lives as to what we're going to do with our lives and what we believe about God, the truth, and reality. And that's the question we ask ourselves. What is the truth? And joining me in this program today is our Director of Research, Steve Morrison. Great to have you here as usual,
Thank
Steve.
You.
We are claiming as Christians that the truth that we find ourselves in is given to us through the Word of God, the Bible, the Old Testament, New Testament, Gospel of Jesus Christ. But we also have these other religions out there that also claim the truth. And for instance, today we're going to study one more time. In fact, this will be in a sequence of shows we've been doing basically on Islam dealing with women. But the particular subject we're going to cover today, the title of this particular program dealing with the subject of Islam is entitled, Why Did Muhammad Have So Many Wives? And as we analyze this question from the Islamic faith, hopefully as we learn more on this subject, we can start relating it back to the truth claims of the religion itself as it relates to this topic today. And then from there, take it back one more step to how does Christianity factor into the truth claims of Islam. But Steve, since you've done so much research, and as we've mentioned show after show, we have done just countless shows on Islam on all types of subjects relating to that issue. This question of why did Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, Allah's apostle, as he's referred to in the Islamic hadiths, the Qur'an, and so forth, why did Muhammad have so many wives?
Well, first of all, Surah 4:3 says a Muslim can only have 4 wives maximum.
Okay, so now right away that brings up the question, if the Quran, the holy book of Islam, says you're only to have 4 wives, how is it that, as we're going to find out, Muhammad had more than that?
Well, Surah 457 makes a special exception for Muhammad.
Okay, so the Quran gives an exception to Muhammad, but to no one else.
Right. Well, except that the Quran also gives an exception that the Muslim men can have sex with women whom their right hands possess. And that is in Surah 23, 5 through 6, 33, 50, and 52, 424, and Surah 70, 29 through 30.
And we covered this in quite some detail in show number 2 in a sequence of videos we've done on the Islamic view of women in the relationship. And the right hand possess is like a slave girl, let's say,
right.
or a slave woman,
or captive.
captive, it's someone that the Muslim overseer, master, or lord of that person possesses as almost like an object that he owns, and he can therefore do with that woman as he will, or in this case maybe make a sex toy out of her or something like that.
Now, I guess one comment on Muhammad's situation was by Aisha, his either second or third wife. And her comment was, "It seems to me that your Lord hastens to satisfy your desire." That's what she told Muhammad in Sahih Muslim, Volume 2, 3453 to 3454.
So what do you think she was referring to when she says the Lord hastens to fulfill your desire?
It was right after he got married to someone else.
Oh, okay. So obvious reference there to he apparently needs more. And this ties into the whole question of why did he have so many wives?
Right. Now, one Muslim, liberal Muslim, gave me an answer and said, well, every marriage was for humanitarian reasons or alliance purposes. Because some of the Aisha and some of the wives were daughters of powerful chiefs that Muhammad needed the support of, and others were widows that Muhammad had taken care of. And when the Muslim told me this, I asked him, "Have you heard about Zainab? Have you heard about Safiyah?" And he hadn't. He didn't know about those wives. And if he hadn't, probably a lot of other Muslims hadn't either. And basically, Zainab, Safiyah, Juwariya, some of the other wives make that previous claim total baloney. But what we're going to do today is we're going to go through the wives of Muhammad and a few potential wives who we're not quite certain if they're wives yet or not, and the concubines and the slave girls. And we're just going to see, in more of a history lesson, about his wives and his relations and what they're like.
Okay. Well, with that, let's do it. Let's see what Muhammad was doing here in his marital relations.
Okay. Well, the Muslim scholar Ali Dashti, Iranian Muslim scholar, made a list of what he found of the wives of Muhammad, and it's in his book. And so we're going to go through his list, and then we're going to find some that in my reading the hadiths that he overlooked, and we're going to talk about some of them. And so I should mention that there are other lists where other scholars have slightly different numbers of more and less, but we're just going to go with Ali Dashti's list mainly as a reference point. And first of all, there's Khadija. Now, Khadija was older than Muhammad, and she died before he married anybody else. Okay, and afterwards was Sauda, and then Aisha. And there's a little disagreement: was Sauda the second, and Aisha married right after, or was it vice versa? But that's not that important a point, I don't think. And after that, you had, and you see the different spellings, even in different books, both coming out of Saudi Arabia, you have different spellings in English. So we just put the different writing and spellings. Salama, Hafsa was the fifth one. Zainab of Jahsh, Juwariya bint Harith. Bint, by the way, is the Arabic word meaning daughter of, just like bin means son of. All right, Habiba, Safiyah bint Huay. There's Maimuna. There is Fatima, and there's a famous Fatima who is Muhammad's daughter. This is a different Fatima, and we're going to see about that. Then there's Hind or Hind. There's Asma of Sabah. There's Zainab of Khuzama. There's Abla. There's Asma of Noman. There's Mary the Christian, also called Mary the Copt. She was the slave from Egypt. There's Rayhana bin Zaid. Then there's some girls that was an uncertain relationship. Maybe they were wives, maybe they were concubines, and maybe Muhammad didn't have sexual relations with them at all. But anyway, there's Sharik, there's Maimuna, a slave girl, there's Zainab the third, there's Kala, and then there are at least 10 others that Ali Dashti missed. And they're either wives or there's evidence that they're wives, but not proof that they're wives. And we're going to show you what they are and show you the evidence so you can go look it up for yourself. Okay, so if you add all these numbers, this could mean 16, not counting concubines. It could mean 18. It could mean 22. It could mean 32. Mm-hmm. So we really don't know the number of wives Muhammad had. Various commentators have given different numbers. Al-Tabari, Volume 9, page 126-27, said that Muhammad married 15 women, and he consummated his marriage with 13 of them. So there are 2 he married, but they divorced or died before he consummated the marriage. Okay. Bukhari 1-282, page 172-173 says that at least at one time Muhammad had 9 wives. Okay. Another thing, Muhammad had 9 wives, and according to Sahih Muslim, 2, 3455, 3456. And anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of these wives and teach you a little bit about them and what they're about, so you could understand, what kind of man, Muhammad had, with his relationships with his wives.
All right.
Well, the first one we're not going to say too much about. There's Khadija. It is referenced in a number of places, and Aisha said that she envied Khadija because Muhammad loved her a lot. She died 3 years before Aisha married Muhammad, and she's mentioned in Bukhari 5, 164, 165, page 103, and Sahih Muslim 4, 5971, page 1297. The second wife on our list is Sada bint Zama, and she is mentioned in Sahih Muslim 3451, page 747, Bukhari 3, 269, page 154, and 3853, page 29, Sahih Muslim 2, 2958, page 651, and also the Sahih Muslim volume 2, footnote 1918, page 748, says that probably Aisha was married to Muhammad before her, but Aisha did not enter Muhammad's house till after Sada was married to Muhammad. So Muhammad married Aisha when she was 6, but didn't consummate the marriage until she was 9 years old. And in between that time, he probably married Sada. Okay. Now, Sada's ex-husband was named Al-Sakran bi Amr bi Abd Shams, but he became a Christian in Abyssinia, and he died there. This is in Al-Tabari, volume 9, page 128. So there's some question as to whether they divorced and then Muhammad married Sada, or whether the husband was a Christian and then died, and then she married Muhammad. Sada, at least later, after she was one of the first ones married, and after 10 years or so, physically called Aisha called Sada a fat, huge lady, is the term she used, which doesn't sound very nice. In Bukhari 6, 318, page 300. Okay. Now, when Sada was old, she was afraid that Muhammad would divorce her, so she gave her turn to Aisha, according to Abu Dawud 2, 2130, page 572. So that way she wouldn't be turned out by Muhammad and be destitute. At least now we don't have evidence that Muhammad did divorce her, but that was her fear that would happen.
So when you say to some of our viewers, so I think I understand, but when you say here, and people can see it on the chart, so she gave her turn to Aisha, what does that mean?
That means that, Muhammad rotated which wife he would spend the night with, and so she gave up her turn with Muhammad. Okay, so she could still be married to him and get the support.
So the wives kind of in a rotation style went to bed with him on different nights. And so I guess he had to keep it in order to keep everybody happy or something like that.
Yeah.
So she wouldn't get divorced. She just gave up her turn.
Right. And to Aisha, who Muhammad probably prefer to be with anyway.
Right. Okay.
All right. Now, next we'll talk about Aisha. She was Abu Bakr's daughter. Now, Abu Bakr was the first caliph. He was the first leader of Muslims after Muhammad died. And she married Muhammad when she was 6 years old, and we have a whole video and documentation showing that. She went to his house when she was 9. Among other places, Bukhari 788, page 65, Sahih Muslim 2, 3309 and 3310, 3311, page 715 and 716. Now, some Muslims would say, well, Aisha was a virgin when she married him, well, being 9 years old. I think that's certainly true. And saying that was done for political reasons to cement an alliance with Abu Bakr. Well, that's kind of baloney, because Abu Bakr was the first convert to Islam, and he was already a loyal follower of Muhammad before Aisha married him. So I don't think that was for that reason at all. Okay, she's mentioned in many, many places, probably too many places to count. But after she's married Muhammad, Aisha played with dolls in the presence of Muhammad. Sahih Muslim 4, 5981, page 1299. One rationale that was given in the footnote I found kind of interesting is Sahih Muslim volume 2, footnote 1859, page 715. It says, it was some exceptional circumstances that Hadra Aisha was married to the Prophet, ... The second point to be noted is that Islam has laid down no age limit for puberty, as it varies with countries and races due to climate, heredity, physical, and social conditions. And this footnote also tries to get support on this from the disreputable Kinsey report on sexual behavior in the human female, which was done in the West some time ago. So they're actually appealing to that to try to justify why it was just fine for this 50-year-old man, Muhammad, to have sex with his 9-year-old girl. Okay, all wasn't always well with Muhammad and Aisha. One time Muhammad himself deliberately struck Aisha, and to quote, on the chest, which caused me pain, according to Sahih Muslim 2:21-27. Okay, that's kind of, well, that's not a good place to strike a woman. The circumstances behind that were that Muhammad got up in the middle of the night to went out. Don't know why, but anyway, Aisha, he thought she was asleep, and she saw him, and she snuck out after him. And she came back to try to beat him back so he wouldn't know that she was trailing him, to see if he would sneak off and go to any of the wives or something like that, perhaps. And anyway, she was breathing heavy and he knew she wasn't asleep, and he was mad at her, so he struck her on the chest, which caused her pain. Mm-hmm. Or that's how he treated her.
Of course, we've already documented in other video shows we've done on Islam, from Islamic sources, that it's all right to beat your wife and to hit her like a stallion camel. Mm-hmm. This is something that we've documented extensively, and it was in the earlier shows that we've done in this particular series. But
right.
Anyway, go ahead.
There was some discord and jealousy among some of the wives. One of the other wives gave Muhammad this kind of treat that he liked. And Aisha told a few of the other wives, and she also told Muhammad falsely that his breath smelled bad and to stay away from it. And it was kind of a conspiracy. And after Aisha started this, and later Muhammad found out about it, he got so mad at all his wives that he stayed away from his wives for a month, or that is like 29 days. This is according to Ibn Majah 3, 2060, page 241, and Ibn Majah 3, 2063, 243. And it says this is the context of when Surah 51 was written. Okay. Now, being a wife of Muhammad did have its advantages. One advantage is Aisha had a number of slaves. She at least had one servant who cooked for her during the time of the delegation from the Banu Mustalik, and that's Abu Dawud 1, 142, page 34. And Aisha had a Muslim slave she later freed named Abu Yunus. Now, Abu Yunus, that's a male slave, so she had some male slaves as well as female slaves. No evidence that anything sexual went on with the male slaves. It was kind of interesting that, she could have male slaves around.
Oh, and Steve, I want the viewers to notice that this slave transcribed from Aisha her copy of Surah 2 from the Qur'an, of which Surah 2, verse 208, was different than today's version of the Qur'an. And to back this up, Aisha even said, quote, "That is how I heard it," end quote. And of course, you can see the reference there, Sunan Nasai 1, 475, page 340.
She also had a slave girl in Abu Dawud 1, 371, page 96. Barira was the name of one female slave of Aisha's, whom she later freed, Abu Dawud 2, 2223, and footnote 1548, page 601. Aisha had somewhat of a quick temper. She struck the hand of a servant breaking a bowl of food that the servant of another wife had brought to Muhammad when Muhammad was in Aisha's tent. Muhammad got mad and broke the bowl. This is according to Abu Dawud 2, 3560, 3561, page 1011. Now here's an interesting thing. Now Aisha, the interesting situation, made a promise and she broke her promise one time. And that's a little bit almost functions like penance in the Catholic Church. You're supposed to do something about that, like freeing slaves. So the quote says, he, Ibn Asubr, sent her Aisha 10 slaves, whom she manumitted, which means freed, as an expiation for not keeping her vow. Aisha manumitted more slaves for the same purpose, so she manumitted 40 slaves. She said, "I wish I had specified what I would have done in case of not fulfilling my vow when I made the vow, so I might have done it easily." Footnote 1 says, Aisha did not specify what she would do if she did not keep her promise. This is why she manumitted so many slaves, so that she might feel at ease as to the adequacy of her expiation. And this is in Bukhari 4, 708, page 465. Makes you wonder just how many slaves did Aisha have? 10 were sent to her, but what about the others? Or did she have money to buy all these 40 slaves? The hadiths don't say, but either she had slaves or plenty of money to do all this. So how many slaves did Aisha and otherwise have? Well, I have not found an answer in the hadiths, but I have found 2 clues. And one clue is that Muhammad's wives could command for tents to be set up in Ibn Majah 3, 1771, page 67. So when they want to move a tent or set up a tent, they say, go over there. And the slaves would all get up and they'd take down the tent for her and they put it up for her. Okay. The other thing about the source of finance for all this is when the Muslims went to war, 1/5 of all the war booty went to the Muslim treasury. And Muhammad could take of that for he and his wives or forever what he wanted. And this is according to Sahih Muslim 2, 2347, 2348, and Volume 2, footnote 1463, page 519, and Bukhari 4, 153, page 99, and 6407, page 379. So sometimes a Muslim might make a big deal to say, well, charity wasn't allowed to be given to Muhammad and his wives. Well, that only makes sense because they got the war booty.
That's right. And there was plenty of it.
Yes.
As Muhammad actually used the war booty to spread his religion of Islam by the sword, and as they gained more and more wealth, obviously he could pay his people well, and then it was a profitable adventure for his army as they went out conquering.
And with Khaybar and everything else, when the Hadith says when Allah made the prophet wealthy through conquests.
Exactly. So his conquests were a key to the expansion of this religion, and we're not talking about was it a truthful religion? Is this really the truth? And was Muhammad really a prophet? But he was successful with an army going around conquering, getting money, and building up over time. Just sort of like a good entrepreneur can build up a small business into a big business.
Right. It was like a business, yeah.
Right.
Well, the next wife we're going to talk about is named Salama. And Salama, she was a widow of Abu Salama. Is like, Abu Salama could mean like slave of Salama. And he died in 4 AH. And so she died in 59 AH when she was 84 years old. And she was pregnant when Muhammad married her. And she gave birth to a daughter named Zainab bint Abu Salama. Okay, so it was clear it wasn't Muhammad's daughter, but it was her daughter. Okay. And she's mentioned in many different places. But the next one, wife is named Hafsa. And Hafsa was the daughter of Umar bin Khattab, who was a very apparently had a harsh temper sometimes. And Umar became caliph, that is the leader of all the Muslims, after Muhammad was Abu Bakr, and after Abu Bakr was Umar. And anyway, she was an 18-year-old widow of Kunais when she married Muhammad in 625 AD. And she died in either 647, 648, 661, 662, or 665 AD. There's kind of discrepancies there. Her first husband died of wounds at the Battle of Uhud, and her father thought of marrying her to Uthman. But Uthman declined because he knew that Muhammad wanted to marry her. So contrary to Muslims saying, well, he married Hafsa to help her out because she was a poor widow, if Muhammad hadn't wanted to marry Hafsa, then Uthman would have married her instead. Okay, she was 4 years older than Aisha. Later, Umar said that Muhammad divorced Hafsa with a revocable divorce, but then he took her back. This is in Abu Dawud 2, 2276, page 619. And according to Ibn Ishaq, also Muhammad divorced Hafsa but took her back in Al-Tabari, volume 9, footnotes 884 to 131. The next wife is Zainab bint Jahsh, and her original name was Bara, not to be confused with Aisha's slave. She wasn't, but Muhammad changed it to Zainab, according to Bukhari 8, 212, page 137. However, to kind of confuse things, another wife, Juwariya, her name used to be Bara too, according to Abu Dawud 1, 1498. Anyway, Zainab bint Jahsh was married to Muhammad's adopted son, Zaid, until Muhammad spoke to Sura that she was to divorce Zaid and marry Muhammad. And you want to read that, Surah?
The Surah here is Surah 33, 36 through 38 in the Qur'an, which says, quote, "It is not for any believer, man or woman, when God and his messenger have decreed a matter, to have the choice in the affair. Whosoever disobeys Allah and his messenger has gone astray into manifest error. When you said to him whom Allah had blessed, and you had favored, quote, keep your wife to yourself and fear Allah, end quote, and you were concealing within yourself what Allah should reveal, fearing other men, and Allah has better right for you to fear him. So when Zaid had accomplished what he would of her, then we gave her in marriage to you. so that there should not be any fault in the believers, touching the wives of their adopted sons when they have accomplished what they would of them, and Allah's commandment must be performed. There is no fault in the prophet touching what Allah had ordained for him. End quote.
All right, so there is an entire part of the Quran that basically justifies, and Muslims think the Quran was in heaven, uncreated, of course there before anybody was born, talking about this small matter of why Zaid must divorce his wife, whom he, apparently loved, so that Muhammad could marry her. That sounds kind of self-serving a little bit.
Yes, and very unbiblical from a Christian perspective.
Yeah. Now, if a Muslim might say, no, that's not self-serving, then we've got to ask a Muslim, well then, what purpose did Allah have to give Muhammad yet another wife and take her from Zaid? In Malachi 2:16, the God of the Bible says, I hate divorce. So for what purpose? Is there a military alliance involved? No. Zaid was nobody except Muhammad's adoptive son, and certainly having him divorced doesn't assume any kind of alliance. Was there for any other reason? Was she from any particularly powerful tribe? No. There's no reason at all except to satisfy Muhammad's lust, because all the wives he had so far apparently couldn't do so.
Right, and obviously because it was his adopted son, Muhammad probably on a daily basis was seeing this wife of his adopted son, and probably the desire to have her grew and grew and grew until finally he suddenly gets this convenient revelation from Allah. Right. And basically, as I was reading this surah from the Quran, you could almost see he's almost with a New York Bronx type attitude, keep your mouth shut and do what I say. It's like Allah's will must be performed.
Yeah.
And you have no right.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of nice people in the Bronx.
Well, that's true.
So don't cut them down.
Exactly. I'm not cutting down the people in the Bronx or anything by any means. But I'm just simply saying that if you look at some of the way some of these people, the tough guys talk in some of the neighborhoods or whatever, it's like, hey, don't question what I'm saying. You just basically shut up and do what I say.
Right. Because Allah said so.
Exactly. Allah said it.
How do we know Allah said so? Because Muhammad said so.
You got to do it. Right. Yeah. And so that's what the way that this surah comes across. And it goes back to what you were just saying. How can a righteous and holy God just take the wife of a man and just take her from him and then give him to someone else for no apparent reason?
Even though there's nothing that said Zaid wanted to divorce Zainab or Zainab wanted to divorce Zaid.
Right, and then I'm thinking here. I'm just thinking of a verse out of the Scripture here, the New Testament, in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4. It says, "Marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled. But whoremongers and adulterers, God will judge." Now, when you listen to that, whoremongers and adulterers, you go back to the Ten Commandments, Exodus chapter 20, and so forth. Thou shalt not commit adultery. But this looks like a perfect case of adultery where he is actually taking another man's wife to be his own for no obvious reason. There's no, we know there was a bill of divorcement that was allowed in the Deuteronomical law of Moses, but you really don't even see that being fulfilled here.
It was an ordered divorce.
Exactly, and in fact, it wasn't something God even liked. But here you have a clear statement from the New Testament that whoremongers and adulterers God will judge. And I have a feeling that because this looks like a clear-cut case of adultery from a biblical Christian point of view. Now, I understand that Muslims would disagree with this, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But from a biblical perspective, and from many other scriptures, which we'll bring up later, it's obvious that the God of the Bible would judge this man for what he's done here.
Mm-hmm. And well, not only did he do this, but he did this in the name of God. And he told other people they had to do this because God said so.
Exactly, which is another violation of Deuteronomy chapter 13 and Deuteronomy chapter 18 regarding false prophets who falsely speak in the name of God. You also get that in Ezekiel chapter 14, verse 10, and many other references. Muhammad fulfills the title of false prophet as defined biblically. Muhammad cannot be considered a true prophet of the living God according to the Bible. The reasons for this are as follows. Number one, Muhammad does not follow or obey the established laws of God by way of Moses or Jesus. Exodus chapter 20, verse 14 says, quote, "Thou shalt not commit adultery," end quote, according to Moses. And Jesus says, quote, "that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart," end quote. That's from Matthew chapter 5, verse 28. Adulterers are condemned by God and the prophets. Number 2, Muhammad, to satisfy his own lust, justifies his sin by falsely claiming that his sins are sanctioned by God. The God of the Bible condemns so-called, quote, prophets, end quote, who falsely speak in his name. Ezekiel 13, 6 through 8 says, quote, "They have seen vanity and lying divination, saying, The Lord saith, and the Lord hath not sent them. Because you have spoken vanity and seen lies, therefore, behold, I am against you, saith the Lord God," end quote. Number 3, Muhammad's anti-biblical lifestyle, his false religious teachings, his unsubstantiated claims of prophethood, and his unrelenting lust for worldly possessions, i.e., women, money, and power, clearly place him outside of the kingdom of God. 1 John 2, 15 through 17 says, quote, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of God abideth forever," end quote. Number 4, why would Muhammad want his son-in-law's wife? Why would God, who hates divorce, Malachi chapter 2, verse 16, tell Muhammad to take another man's wife? Muhammad clearly fails the command of God in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 21, which says, quote, "Neither shalt thou desire thy neighbor's wife," end quote.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, anyway, things weren't always smooth with Zainab and Aisha. According to Abu Dawud 3, 4880, page 1364 and 1365, Zainab, verbally, my edition, abused Aisha, so Muhammad told Aisha to abuse her. Well, that certainly sounds like a wise way of handling things. Not so, but and
Return evil with evil.
Yeah. The apostle of Allah, may peace be upon him, came upon me, Aisha, while Zainab, daughter of Jahsh, was with us. He began to do something with his hand. I signaled to him until I made him understand about her, so he stopped. Zainab came on and began to abuse Aisha. She prevented her, but he did not stop. So he, the prophet, said to Aisha, "Abuse her." Then she abused her and dominated her. Dominated, I don't know what that means, if that means physical or what. But anyway, Zainab then went to Ali and said, "Aisha abused you and did such and such." Then Fatima, that is Muhammad's daughter, came to the prophet and said to her, "She is favored of your father by the Lord of the Kaaba." She then returned and said to them, "I said to him such and such, and he said to me such and such." Then Ali came to the prophet, may peace be upon him, and spoke to him about that. So Zainab didn't like Aisha doing that.
What's your reference there?
Well, at the beginning I said Abu Dawud 3:4880, 1364, 1365. So Zainab went and brought Fatima, who got her husband Ali involved. So just like one big old, happy golly family? Not quite.
Abusing one another.
Yeah.
And the prophet himself is involved in condoning the abuse.
Yeah. So you kind of wonder what this example sets for strife in the home.
And once again, it's purely in contrast to the biblical record of how husbands and wives should treat each other, or even interpersonal relationships, where you have the Sermon on the Mount,
right?
And how we should treat one another, do unto your neighbor as you'd have them do unto yourself. I surely would want you wanting you slapping me around. I wouldn't appreciate it, and you wouldn't want that either. But to have someone who claims to be a prophet of God actually giving advice that would violate all the things that were taught to us by the Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
and the prophets.
what happened about living a life of love and God's love and loving others as yourself? Right. It's like you got to start with loving your wives and your relatives as yourself.
And this all relates back to what I was saying at the beginning of the show about truth. Are we learning anything about the truth of a religion based on the way so-called prophets live their lives and what they teach in the name of God? Are we learning anything about that from these examples? And that's part of what we're trying to answer for the viewing audience.
All right, well, we'll see another one. Another wife, seventh on our list, or actually seventh on Ali Dashti's list, is Jurariya bint Harith. And she was a captive. And Sahih Muslim 2:2349, page 520, says that Muhammad attacked the Bani Mustalik tribe without warning, and it's like giving an excuse as to what they were doing wrong, while they were heedlessly grazing their cattle. All right, so without paying attention to having a strong defense, they made the mistake of heedlessly grazing the cattle when Muslims were around.
So in other words, they were minding their own business, doing their cattle tending, and Muhammad and his troops attacked them unawares and took them over.
Yeah, they should have been heedlessly.
I guess they should have been, guarding and getting ready for an attack, but they were minding their own business, and Muhammad just attacked them.
Right. So anyway, Jurariya was a daughter of the chief. She was captured in a raid, and then Muhammad married her. So it's nice that he takes care of her. But
good Christian ethics there.
Yeah, if you just hadn't attacked him in the first place,
right.
They weren't trying to attack Muhammad. They were just grazing their cattle. But anyway, the next wife, Habiba, she's the daughter of Abu Sufyan. Now, Abu Sufyan, he was kind of the main general in the Meccan army. She was 23 years younger than Muhammad, according to Sunan Nasai, Volume 1, number 60, page 127. Later, Abu Sufyan became a Muslim. This is after Mecca was conquered, and kind of one wonders about the sincerity of his conversion. Anyway, the next one is really interesting. Her name is Safiyah bint Huay. Now, she was a captive Muhammad married after slaughtering her husband and the hundreds of men at Khaybar, according to Bukhari 268 and 143 and 280.
So now you have another example of another woman who, in this case, her husband's killed by Muhammad, and her tribes, basically all the men in her tribe, were wiped out by Muhammad's orders, and then he takes her, and then he's already killed the father of another one, and taken her over. So we're really getting an example here of the prophet on how to get a wife.
Yeah. Just
go out and kill the fathers and the husbands. So
anyway, I kind of take exception to the fact that some modernist Muslims say, well, except for Aisha, Muhammad primarily married, people for alliances and married widows. Well, yeah, it sounds nicely married a widow till you realize that he made her a widow the day before by killing her husband.
Yeah, he's making him widows, and he takes them over. So I seem to recall that there was a commandment in the Ten Commandments that says, "Thou shalt not kill." Actually, the Hebrew word there is mur for murder. Thou shalt not murder, and it sounds to me like he's doing a lot of that to get what he wants, because Allah is trying to help him get what he wants, according to what Aisha said.
He beheaded the men at Khaybar after they surrendered because they didn't help him in the battle. It was a long story, but the Banu Qurayza, they didn't help the Battle of the Ditch, and supposedly he attacked them because supposedly they were massing to attack him, though there's not evidence of that. So he didn't fight them just to get Safiyah, but after he fought them, he renamed her Safiyah, because Safi was the first share of the booty, which went to Muhammad. So she was actually booty for Muhammad.
War booty. In fact, we cover a lot of this in another video we've already done on Islamic holy war, jihad. That's something we've got a lot more detail on in a different video.
So anyway, and she was booty according to Abu Dawud 2, 2988, page 848, and 2, 2985 to 2989, and the footnote 2406. That's all on page 846 to 849. And she was purchased by Muhammad for 7 slaves, according to Ibn Majah 3, 2272, page 357. Now, Muhammad felt, I guess, some kindness towards Safiyah. He said, if Safiyah were not grieved, I would have left him, meaning her husband, whom Muhammad executed, until the birds and beasts of prey would have eaten him, and he would have been resurrected from their bellies. This is according to Abu Dawud 2, 3130, 3131, page 893. So, so Muhammad was kind to Safiyah after he married her by cutting down her former husband after he'd been killed and burying him so he wouldn't have been eaten by the animals.
It was a mighty nice thing of him to do for her husband.
Yeah. Anyway, physically, Safiyah was short. Just to kind of say the physical characteristics, in Abu Dawud 3, 4857, 1359, there was some discord between wives. Zainab didn't want to loan a camel to Safiyah when Muhammad asked Zainab to do so. Zainab called Safiyah a Jewess, which was almost like a dirty word to say you're Jewish. And she was Jewish because there was a tribe of Jewish people. This is according to Abu Dawud 3, 4588, page 1293. And she's mentioned in various places. There's another person, wife of Muhammad, Safiyah bint Abi Ubaid, and this is in Bukhari 4244, page 151. However, this Safiyah is probably the same person. We're not certain, but a man could have more than one name, like a name and a nickname, and so it's probably the same, though we're not certain about that. Okay.
Right.
Well, the next wife is named Maimuna bint Harith, and she's mentioned in Sahih Muslim, among other places, and he married her in 7 AH while he was in ritual purity on a journey to Mecca, in Al-Tabari, volume 8, 136. Now, she was older than some of the other wives. She was 30 years old when Muhammad married her, and he died like 4 years later, according to Sunan Nasai, volume 1, number 43, page 120. Now, Maimuna screened Muhammad in Bukhari 1, 279, page 171. Now, people were screened when they bathed or went to the bathroom, and of course nothing was wrong with that because she was his wife. Maimuna had a freed slave girl. The slave was given a sheep in Ibn Majah 53610, page 93. Now, the next one isn't mentioned very frequently. There's Fatima, who's mentioned by Ali Dashti, and initially you might think, well, maybe did he confuse this with Fatima, Muhammad's daughter, through Khadijah? Well, actually, no, because Al-Tabari, volume 9, page 39, states that Muhammad briefly married Fatima bint al-Dahak bint Sufyan, who was also called al-Kalabiyah. So he also married another Fatima with another surname, and it could be the same Fatima. He married Fatima bint Suryas or Sarah in Al-Tabari, volume 9, page 139. And it's unclear if Surya and Al-Dak were the same people or two people. But anyway, there was at least one Fatima that he married briefly. Now, Fatima, Muhammad's daughter again. So when the hadiths talk about Fatima, it's not always unclear who they're speaking about. Fatima screened Muhammad while he was bathing in Bukhari 1, 278, page 171-71. However, he was screened by his daughter, Fatima, and it says his daughter in Bukhari 4, 396-263. So, Fatima, by the way, she and Ali got married. And now, Muhammad didn't want Ali to marry another person besides his daughter Fatima. This is in Ibn Majah 3, 1998-1999, page 202-204. Now, Fatima, Muhammad's daughter, didn't fare as well as the wives as far as slaves, because she had to grind her own bread, didn't have a cook like Aisha, and she asked for a slave, a prisoner of war, because there were so many. And Muhammad didn't give her one, but said he'd give her something even better. And what he said to give better is he said, if you can say glory to Allah 33 times and praise be to Allah 34 times and Allah is most great 34 times, then you'll have a great reward, to say that continuously. So it's like, I'll give you something better than a slave. I'll give you something that you can say all the time.
And then where is that reference?
Abu Dawud, volume 3, 5044 to 5045, page 1405.
So that was supposed to make her happy? To just be repeating this stuff?
Even happier than having her own slave.
I wonder if she really felt that after repeating all these words over and over again.
I don't know.
Yeah. I would question it myself, because that still doesn't mean that she has a slave to do her work and cooking and stuff. But anyway, go ahead.
All right, the next one we'll go very briefly was Hind, and she was formerly married to Abu Sufyan, who was a very stingy man. So after Abu Sufyan died, Muhammad married his widow, and he was stingy according to Sahih Muslim 3, 4251 to 4254, page 928 and 929. Now, next one is Zainab. This is a different Zainab, though. Zainab of Khuzayma. She belonged to the tribe of Banu Hilal. She was divorced from a Muslim, Tufail, and then married his brother Ubaida, who was killed at Badr. So she was divorced and then widowed, and then she married Muhammad. And she died when she was 31 years old, and she actually died before Muhammad did. Most of Muhammad's wives outlived him, but not Zainab.
The viewers at home can find the references for this in Al-Tabari, Volume 7, page 150, footnotes 215 and 216.
The next one is actually not a regular wife, but a concubine. And this is Mary, or also pronounced Maria, the Copt or Christian. And she was said to be a wife, according to Sahih Muslim, Volume 4, footnote 2835, page 1351. Now, she is the only wife of Muhammad after Khadijah that gave birth to a child, to a son, Ibrahim, in Al-Tabari, Volume 9, page 39. Now, Ibrahim died when he was 2 years old. And the Muslim emissary Hatib bin Abi Baltaya, when he returned from Egypt with Maria and her sister, Surin, and they had a female mule, a set of garments, and a eunuch, then they were kind of given as gifts by the king of Egypt. And Hatib invited them to become Muslims, and the two women did so, according to Tabari. According to other sources, Maria did not. But Maria was beautiful, and Muhammad sent her sister Shireen to Hassan bin Thabit, and Hassan and Shireen were parents of Abdul Rahman in Al-Tabari, Volume 8. So Maria was one concubine, and the other concubine was Rayhana bint Zaid, according to Al-Tabari 9, page 141. Now she was a Jewish captive from the Qurayza tribe, and Muhammad offered to make her a wife instead of a slave, but she declined in order to remain Jewish, according to Al-Tabari, Volume 8, page 39, and also Al-Tabari 9, Volume 9, page 137. Now this is interesting because Muslims were not supposed to, men were not supposed to marry non-Muslim women. Mm-hmm. So he didn't marry her as a wife, but he married her as a concubine.
So sort of a legal loophole to get around that obvious rule. You just, by not saying she's an actual wife, but more like a concubine, he could therefore get what he wanted,
right,
without having to run into that consequence.
Yeah. Now another one, Maimuna, was a woman who offered herself to Muhammad, according to Sahih Muslim, Volume 2, footnote 1919. This could be the same Maimuna as wife number 10, or it could be a different one. Now, beside the wives and besides the two concubines, there were other women in Muhammad's life, and they are women your right hand possess, captives and slave girls. And first of all, here's what the Qur'an says about that. Abstain from sex, except with those joined to them in the marriage bond, one category, or, and the captives is not in the Arabic, whom their right hands possess. For, in their case, not in the Arabic, they are free from blame. This is Surah 23, 5 through 6. You can also see Surah 424. And Muhammad also said, Muhammad replied, conceal your private parts, except from your wife, and from whom your right hands possess, that is, slave girls. Or it could be captives too. This is in Abu Dawud 3, 4006, page 1123. So, Muhammad very clearly taught you don't have to conceal your private parts from your slave girls. Now, Muhammad had a few slave girls too, according to Bukhari 7, 274, page 210. For example, Salma was the name of a maidservant of Muhammad, according to Abu Dawud 3, 3849, page 1084. Maimuna was a freed slave girl of Muhammad in Ibn Majah 3, 2531, page 514, and Abu Dawud 1, 457, page 118. Now, Muhammad probably didn't have sex with Maimuna after she was free, that is, unless that's one of the Maimunas they married. But before she was freed, there was no problem in Muhammad's morality for him to not conceal his private parts from slave girls. Okay, also, Muhammad briefly had a very beautiful captive, was the term here, before he gave her to Maimiyah bi Jaz al-Zubaydi. This is in Al-Tabari 8, page 151. Doesn't say if he had sex with her or if he didn't have sex with her, but if he had her briefly, then according to his morality, he could do anything he wanted. Okay, one of the slave girls belonged to Muhammad's house committed fornication with someone else. Now, it's the someone else part that was a problem. This is in Abu Dawud 3, 4458, page 1249. Muhammad called a black slave girl to come and seal Abu Dar behind a curtain while he was taking a bath. In Abu Dawud 1, 332, page 87. Now, it seems like, concealing someone while they take a bath is sort of like, doesn't seem consistent with saying that, women have to be veiled and everything else. If the women have to be veiled, why is it they who conceal a man? Well, this was not a regular Muslim woman necessarily. This was just a slave girl.
Right, right. So
The only balance here, or restriction, is that Abadat 3, 4443 to 4445, page 1244, shows that a man having sex with a slave girl he owns is okay, but a man will be flogged if he has sex with his wife's slave girl. And the only way he can get out of that, if he did, is if his wife voluntarily gave her slave girl to him, and then it'd be his, and after the fact, it would have been okay.
So he has to get permission from his wife for the sexual favors of his wife's slave.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, you know, when you have morality, as we were discussing here, from the wives to the concubines and all this type of stuff, that doesn't at all match with what the New Testament, the Old Testament teaches about ethical behavior and righteousness before a holy and righteous God of the Bible. It only makes sense that we start to see all this emerging from Islamic sources on actually what we would have to consider a very carnal, unregenerate, someone who is without the Spirit of God, who's in the world, who, as 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 24 through 27 says, is held captive by the devil to do his will. Mm-hmm. Because everything that Muhammad's doing here and the teachings he's giving his people and things are called sin and wickedness in the Old and the New Testament. It's fornication, it's adultery, it's almost like whoremongering with the slave girls and all this type of stuff. All the things that God condemns and says that these people will not inherit the kingdom of God. They have not repented of their sins. They're still in their sins. They're going to be judged for their sins. They're not believing the gospel. They're not believing in the Lord Jesus Christ and his teachings. They're believing in basically a false prophet according to what the scriptures teach. Mm-hmm. And therefore they will be judged because they're not believing the truth. And there we go again with what we started the show out with, the truth. And what is the truth? That Islam claims that the truth is from Jesus Christ and the Torah and all these things. Well, they're totally denigrating it and they're perverting it to beyond recognition.
They're disobeying God's
words.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they're going to be judged according to what we said. And as I read Hebrews 13:4 a while ago, God will judge them for this type of behavior. But anyway, we're running out of time. I believe we've got about 5 minutes left.
Okay. So real quickly, there are a bunch of marriages and brief marriages that Ali Dashti didn't come up with. Aisha, for example, felt jealous of the women who offered themselves to Muhammad, presumably as wives, in Sahih Muslim 2, 3453, page 748. But it was okay that a woman offered herself to Muhammad. In Ibn Majah 3, 2000-2001, page 304 to 305. Okay, so some of the other people that Muhammad married, and married is the actual word here, is Mulaika bint Dawood al-Lathiyah. But when she was told that Muhammad was the one who had her father killed, she basically didn't want anything to do with Muhammad. She said she took refuge in Allah from Muhammad. So she became a Muslim, but she would have nothing to do with Muhammad because Muhammad was the one who had her father killed. This is in Al-Tabari, volume 8, page 189. Muhammad also married al-Nasht bint Rifa of the Banu Kalab bin Rabia, who were allies of the Qurayza. She was also called Sana. However, she died before Muhammad consummated his marriage with her in Al-Tabari 9, page 135 to 136. Muhammad married al-Shamba bint Amr al-Ghifariya. And when Ibrahim died, she said that if Muhammad were a true prophet, his son would not have died. And Muhammad divorced her for that, and before he consummated his marriage with her. This is in Al-Tabari 9, page 136. Muhammad married Asma bint al-Numan bin al-Aswad bin Sharahil. However, unknown to him, she had leprosy. So when Muhammad found that out, he gave her money and divorced her in Al-Tabari 9, 137.
So he not only is he killing the fathers and husbands of these women he's taken as wives, he's also ending up divorcing a lot of them for various and sundry reasons.
Right. So if you're married to a wife or husband and they have some serious physical ailment, and leprosy is serious, then you take care of them or you just divorce them. So anyway, he gave her money at least, but he divorced her. In Al-Tabari 9, 137, Muhammad married Aliyah, but then divorced her in Tabari 9, 138. He divorced Amra, Ibn Majah 3, 54, page 233, and 3, 2030, page 226. And Muhammad married Qatalia bint Qais, but she died before they consummated the marriage in Al-Tabari 9, 138. Muhammad married Gaiza bint Jabir, but when Muhammad went to her, he found her to be an old woman, so he divorced her. So he married her kind of sight unseen, but when he saw she was old, well, then so much for constancy and
That's right. He
faithfulness
just
in marriage.
divorced her. So that goes against what the Bible would teach. So he's just violating every biblical command that there is, up and down the line for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. He also married Kawa bint al-Hudail. Both of these are in Al-Tabari 9, 139. He married the daughter of Al-Jan, very briefly at least, in Bukhari 7, 181, page 131, 132. There's also an Ar-Rabi, who arguably might have been a wife of Muhammad. After a while, you kind of lose count here, I guess. This is Bukhari 777, page 58. Also, so with all of these, you kind of wondered, was Muhammad really satisfied? Well, he had some marriage proposals declined. All right, Muhammad asked to marry Ghaziyah, and the reason it says in Al-Tabari 9, 136 is on account of her beauty, but she declined. Now, Tabari claims she was in a state of infidelity, kind of a slander against her, but doesn't have any evidence in that. A woman named Layla clapped Muhammad's shoulder from behind and asked him to marry her. Muhammad accepted. However, Layla's people said she did a bad thing, so Layla returned to Muhammad and asked him to revoke, that is, annul the marriage, and Muhammad complied. So that's like an almost marriage in Al-Tabari 9, 139. Muhammad proposed marriage, but ended up not marrying 5 different women.
Umhani bini Abi Talib, because she said she was with child. Muhammad obviously changed his mind about marrying her when he discovered this significant fact.
Dubai bint Amir, who was too old. He proposed to Safiyah bint Bashama, a captive, but she could choose between Muhammad and her husband, who was still alive, and she chose to stay with her husband. That was at least nice of Muhammad there to give her a choice.
That's one of those rare exceptions.
Yeah. Habib bint al-Abbas, but since al-Abbas was his foster brother, it wouldn't have been lawful, so Muhammad backed out. All right, that one makes sense. Jamr bint al-Harith. Her father falsely claimed she was suffering from something, and he found that she had been afflicted with leprosy. And this is Al-Tabari 9, 140 to 141. Now, it's possible that some of these different ladies that are similar may have actually been the same lady with a different name, but either way, it's like there are a lot of wives here. And why was it that Muhammad really needed so many wives? On account of her beauty, to satisfy his lust. It sort of seems that way, but it certainly wasn't because to cement powerful alliances, especially with after he already killed the men in the tribe.
And everything you find here, as we're about out of time, is that Muhammad was simply, as the Bible would describe, a carnal man that simply is fulfilling the lusts of the flesh. Mm-hmm. And he's fulfilling every requirement of what the Scripture says a sinner would have in what he's doing by his actions. From murder, adultery, to having all the wrong reasons for doing things. It's an amazing thing. Muhammad's actions prove he will not inherit the kingdom of God. The Bible, Colossians chapter 3, verses 4 through 6 says, "For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. Mortify, therefore, your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry, for which things' sake the wrath of God cometh on the children of disobedience." End quote. See also 1 Corinthians 5, 9 through 10, Galatians 5, 19 through 21, Ephesians 5, 3 through 5, Revelation 22, 14 through 15, and many more. Repent of Muhammad's sins and turn to Christ Jesus for salvation by a holy God. Acts 16, 31. And just remember, you don't need Muhammad and his ethics. What you need is the Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of heaven and earth, the King of kings and the Lord of lords. He's the way, the truth, and the life, not Muhammad, and you can tell by the way they live. Thank you very much for being with us. God bless you. Join us again next time.
check out our websites. BibleQuery.org. This site answers 7,700 Bible questions. HistoryCart.com. This site reveals early church history and doctrine, proving Roman Catholicism is not historically or doctrinally viable. MuslimHope.com. This site is a classic refutation of Islam, a counterfeit religion created by Muhammad. Free newsletters are also available.